Yo, what's good? We back with another YMD Fireside. It's your boy Tony Drifter. I'm with my man NSILO out of New York. How you doing, my man?
I'm chilling, my brother. I'm trying to get like you.
Same. We all just trying to get it going, man. But hold on, this shit is hot. Okay, but yeah, appreciate you for coming on, man. We just we gonna spend some time talking about life, talking about our art, and whatever else comes to mind and stuff like that. So I've known NSILO from our time at American University, which was an interesting experience. You might get into some of that on the pod, but let's talk about let's introduce yourself. Talk about what you. I mean, not what you are, but what you are, who you are, all that stuff like that. Give us your story.
I appreciate you, bro. First of all, thank you for having me on. As always good to see like other young brothers like doing something, trying to make their name for themselves, and I see you doing that. So I appreciate you for even having me here. Me, honestly, I don't want to sound like inflated, but bro, my history is so vast, bro. I've been through like so much. Like I'm first generation, so my mom came here when she was like 22. I was born here, but then I went straight to Jamaica for a while. So I grew up there, and then I came back here, and then getting used to the American culture again, like I've been doing for like the past like 5 years or so. I'm a activist by nature. I spend most of my life like doing some type of activism, environmental activism, human rights activism. I've been lucky enough to be able to speak at like some pretty like high level forums and meet a lot of people who are in the space. I've been able to go to the White House to meet the Obamas and things like that, simply off of like my advocacy for others and things like that. But around like 2016, when there was just like a series of like black men being shot up and down the street and all like the turmoil that came with American politics, like it kind of got really overwhelming for me for a little bit. Like it was just after dedicating like so much of my life from like a young age to something so serious, I thought it would get better as I like aged, but it was just getting worse. So I was like, I need a break. I really need to focus. My whole life has been built around like service and trying to help others and trying to like bolster others and make self-actualize others, but I didn't really focus too much on myself. And I wanted to become the most well-rounded version of me that I could possibly be. My like greatest inspirations have always been like those old-timey dudes who were like physicians and doctors and geologists all at the same time, like 1920s type shit.
Yeah.
Can I curse on here?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
My fault. I curse a lot, so I gotta like.
It's all good, bro.
But yeah, so that's what always my motivation. So I always wanted to do like so many different things. So from a young age, I've been playing instruments. I started off with the piano, then I did the drums, baritone horn, xylophone, a bunch of different instruments. And around that time in 2016, like I had just finished doing band in high school, and I just didn't have a creative outlet in college, and I had to take a art gen ed anyway. And I had I know how to draw. So I just decided to start painting. And because the music had been such a big part of my life, literally I've been playing instruments since I was 5 years old, I wanted to find a way to channel that side of me into the art. So I use like music and like musical scores and songs and turn them into visual pictures. So since that, like 2016, that's what I've been trying to like develop about myself, my artistic career, and that's what I've been doing for the past few years.
For sure, that's actually dope. I didn't even know. I mean, you learn something every day, but that's what's up, and I definitely can relate to that needing of a creative outlet. Like I remember my freshman year, I joined the a cappella group, and you get the looks and stuff like that. But it was really for no other reason than the fact that I love to sing, and I was like, well, I got to figure out a way to keep progressing these things and keep moving forward. And so I think what's funny about college is that there's a lot of shit you do because you kind of have to do it, or because like you're trying to find a way to get find yourself or whatever. Because I went to college, I was 17, so I was pretty young, kind of figuring out like can't even like go to the gym without my mom signing a form or whatever. So, there's very few things I could, right, like, do on a regular basis. And so, I feel that. So, but that's actually interesting because I thought you were doing painting for a lot longer. So, and, I've obviously seen a lot of your work and it's really dope. So that's cool, man. That's cool.
Bro, I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, do you have any specific influences or people that you've tried to emulate as you gotten more familiar with your art style and things?
Honestly, I have purposely tried to distance myself from any type of artistic influence. There's people. The first like painter that I really interacted with and their work was I had to do a project for one of my gen ed courses at AU, and the person I chose was this Nigerian artist called Odita Onili. Like Odita, something like that, bro. Odita Donald Odita, something like that, bro. His name is he has 3 names, and he does a lot with like color and stuff like that. And I saw how he like wove it together, and to me that reminded me of a lot of like what I saw in my own mind. Like I have this thing called synesthesia, and it's where like your brain connects 1 or 2 more of your senses together. So for me, when I hear like sounds, I see color, and and to me, his version of art, he does a lot of like geometric type stuff. And seeing that, I realized that like the way that I made art didn't have to be like Basquiat-esque, I feel like that's such a big movement right now. Everybody wants to like paint like Black women in head wraps and stuff like that, and I think that's dope. We definitely need to see more of that, but I wanted to represent a different part of Black art and something that I could incorporate science and music and like my own social commentary in. So for me, like past seeing his work and having the idea that like I could do abstract art, I try not to be influenced by anybody because I don't sign my paintings on the front, like because to me that disturbs the image. I want the image itself to be like my signature. Like once you see this type of work, it's me. And for that, I don't want to rely on anybody else's type of like work or styles or anything like that. Of course, you can see things and be inspired by them. But for the first few years that I started painting, I really wanted to hone in on like, what is my visual identity? So how do I really draw from my internal like attributes, like my affinity for science and my synesthesia and also the music I like, and how can I put that together to make something that is like as reflective of me as like a fingerprint? So to me, like my biggest inspirations are like nature and musicians, jazz musicians, and astrophysics, things like that I can all incorporate together to make an image.
That's what's up, man. I think that's really interesting. When I was first starting to make music, I kind of had the opposite journey as far as, and I think art is its own journey for everybody. So there's really no right or wrong way to approach it. It just depends on the artist. But what I have learned over time is, at some point I wanted to make music that sounded like something, and that makes sense. I feel like when I work with artists now and trying to get them to kind of find their identity, there's like I want to sound like this person. I want to sound like that person. But I feel like over time you realize the best thing you can really do is go by what feels right, and so like sometimes even with making music, it isn't about finishing a song. It's just about expressing what you feel in that moment and moving forward. And so I think there's elements of that in whatever you create is that like you have to find that style. And I agree with you. There are artists who I definitely admire and things like that, but that's them. Like that's them. I can't be whoever a name is in my head that I'm thinking of right now. I have to be myself. If I even want to be, you can be successful by copying other people. Like we see it all the time, but the people who I admire, and I'm similar to you as far as kind of like that jack of all trades, multidisciplinary kind of thing. Like, but those people who stand out to me are the people who have crafted their own lane, and I think with social media, especially, there's a lot of like, it's easier to find people to like be inspired by and kind of like try to emulate their style. But I think it kind of dilutes the creativity, in the world and stuff like that.
I think so. I think it does like 1,000,000,000%. Honestly, that's my one of my biggest gripes with our culture today is that there's not a lot of ingenuity. Like there's not a lot of making new stuff. It's just recycling things that used to be popular or things that I saw on Instagram that I thought I could do also. There's a particular style of like graphics that are really big on Instagram right now, which is like the person is color blocked, like this all one color, and then there's like a few small details and with like brightly backgrounds. You know what I mean? And when I see that, I hate it, bro, because I know it's one graphic artist somewhere, one digital artist somewhere painted this. Somebody thought it was cool, and now it's like the industry standard across making graphics for like an online platform. So for me, like I couldn't. I definitely could be more popular if I just all I did was paint like particularly super black Afrocentric focused things, but I feel like that's limiting for us. You know what I mean? Especially in the artistic world where we are already so underrepresented. When people hear black art, they think of like dancing or rapping or, you know, particularly African things. But like what is Jamaican art? Like what is something that a black American with Jamaican ancestry, what is something that they particularly would produce? And they don't necessarily think of like abstract art or things related to science and things like that. So I wanted to broaden that scope. And if I just did what everybody else is doing, I would never be able to do that.
Yeah, man. I kind of get this, I'm trying to get the TikTok shit going, and really just because, exposure. But the thing about that I've noticed, and like I think I'm like medium funny, you know what I'm saying? Like when I find a thing that's funny, like it works. But like sometimes I'll be on TikTok and it's the same reproduced sound over and over again, and it's like the same type of things, and I'm like, yes, I know that you're feeding an algorithm. I know that you have to post at this time and do these things or whatever, but I've taken like weeks, months breaks from TikTok because I'm like, bro, I don't have anything that's funny or original, or I don't have that urge to really create anything that like I think stands out or tells anything about my experience. And so I think like it's so systematic sometimes, and it really kind of, it's really hard because on one hand, I feel like you have to keep pushing in order to stand out. Like you have to keep doing what you want to do. But at the same time, trying to find a way to consistently produce seems to be like what everybody's about. It's like, oh, how many times, how consistently can you do certain things? And I don't think that's how art necessarily works. I think that art ebbs and flows. And so I feel for not just people like me, but, creators in general who are kind of like dealing with just having to, we want to monetize this. Like we want to make money. We want to be able to make, and not even like to be rich and famous, but to just be able to eat, to pay our rent, to, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously I want to have money, but I think we're just in such a corporate, like, you know what I'm saying? Like stranglehold of just what's the bottom line. And it's awful,
man.
Honestly.
What's super interesting about that is that like for the past few years, you've been seeing like this yearning towards like socialism, and Bernie Sanders was super popular and whatever. But in actual practice, like the same people, they only really want to be like the new capitalist. You know what I mean? Like everything about our society is driven towards money and how can I monetize myself? How much influence can I get? And it's just more and more and more and more and more, particularly in America. And it's like literally killing us, I think. We're doing things for the wrong reasons, and for the short term, it will feel good. But as we like get older and we see the effects of the things that we've done on other people, I think we're starting to see that like this is not sustainable. And doing something really for like the impact of it, I think is a better place to start from. Because like we definitely want to eat, like, but there's many ways to go about making that money. You know what I mean? And for me, the way that I've done it is I just used my other talents to find a way to support this one, right? So especially as an artist, like your networking game has to be on point, your marketing game has to be on point, how you speak to people, your personal etiquette, things like that. So those are the things I tried to focus on, because in the world that's super driven, like on a digital platform, what people miss the most is a personal touch. And once you can find that niche and try to affect industry in that way, I think a lot of us will have a lot more like success, because you can definitely blow up on Instagram, you can definitely blow up on TikTok, but at least for me, it's definitely helped to go to that person's office in person, like bring some painting samples with you, and like, hey, this is what I've made. I'm really interested in showing this work, and I noticed that you have a need for art in this space, and I've gotten plenty of like things just off of doing that. So I think just with the changing times, sometimes the old ways work too, and we just don't realize.
Yeah, man, I wholeheartedly agree on that, and to the point where, like, you know, I guess I care about social media. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I care from the standpoint of, like, I want people to see what I'm doing, especially the people who, I guess, in theory, support me. You know what I'm saying? Some of it's IG algorithm shit, so I'm not going to be like, nobody showed me love or nothing like that, because that's a whole different game in itself. And it's a lot of it's a money game. But, like, I also feel that the best way really is in person, man. I think no matter how much, you know, these things like this, like technology makes it real easy for us to do stuff like this, which is dope. And I'm happy that I can find a way to, you know, have conversations with dope people from all over the place versus like having to book a flight to New York and saying, okay, like, and bring my camera equipment and all the other stuff. But, you know, I think even coming back home, and place that I don't want to be forever, but, you know, realizing that, like, I have to reestablish myself in this community, because I've been gone before COVID, I was gone for about 8 years. And so kind of seeing what it's like when people get to see your face and know who you are and really, like, understand what you bring to the community around you is a whole different level of things. And the other thing is, in high school, we had this thing called called freshman guidance or whatever. So we had to do social skills or whatever. And so every week we had a social skill that we had to learn. I don't remember half of them motherfuckers anymore, but like my mom, you know, she always made me talk. She always made me, you know, be in front of people and know how to speak to adults and things like that. And so it's made, even if I'm somewhat of an introvert, like at my natural resting state, like, I can go out and have a conversation with somebody. I can go out and recognize. And I think the other thing you talked about with etiquette and networking is really crucial for a lot of people to understand, as far as being able to have conversations with somebody without it being transactional, right? Like, we can all want and need something from one another without every interaction being like about trying to finesse or trying to, you know, like, sometimes a relationship is the value of the relationship is from the relationship itself, not from the connection you get, or, you know. Yeah, exactly.
I definitely feel that, my brother. And before I comment on that, I want to speak to something you said a little bit earlier about your mom, like, putting you in social situations to talk and stuff like that. And my mom did exactly the same thing. And honestly, a big part of why I'm so successful in different arenas is because of the things that she, like, made me do when I was younger. Then it seemed like a punishment, but now I'm like, wow, like, it puts you so far ahead. Like, my mom is a nurse, and like, she used to like sit me down in the kitchen, and as she cooked, I would have to read her like the medical dictionary. You feel me? So at a young age, being able to like know, like, be around like kind of like higher learning and things like that, and going to her nurses conferences and her taking me to all these different places, so I'm exposed to different cultures, dance shows and jazz performances, and eating different cuisines. Like, just being out in the world and experiencing around different types of people, just later on in life, like, you have such such headway on your peers. And I think because we have like our phones and our computers and shit like that, like, our new generation, like 97 plus, that quality in us is like diminishing so much, because all we're used to is like the phone and the computer. And now we get to go outside, and it's just a bunch of weird shit. So definitely beneficial.
Yeah, people are weirdos, and not even like to like hate or anything, but like, I mean, I think that it's encouraged to be a weirdo, to be antisocial, to and kind of be childish. You know, I think a lot of us are immature because we're allowed to be immature, and not confronted. It's like, I'm not the most assertive person at all times. There's a lot of times that I'm kind of like maybe too, passive in certain moments. I've grown out of that. I mean, being in DC and the East Coast really helped with that because I was like, oh, y'all motherfuckers like to play around with people. Okay, I can't just be like a nice guy all the time.
Yeah,
but
they move different around here, bro. You got to be really on your P's and Q's.
On your shit, because look, if somebody even see you looking the wrong way, they're like, got him. Like it's competitive, but I've also realized though, even in some of that assertiveness, there's a lot of passive aggressiveness. There's a lot of like other shit that goes on in between it or whatever. And so like kind of learning that balance of like, okay, like it's not cool being petty. Like I remember our freshmen through basically our whole time, but especially when we first got to college, there was this like petty movement. Everybody wanted to be the pettiest motherfucker in the room and all this shit. And like, I remember kind of being like, do I gotta be like this to be like successful? Do I have to be a petty motherfucker like to find friends or find community? And I remember, when you're not who you are, when you're not being who you are and you can feel it, like you can feel it in your core. You just know this isn't me and you push it through it. And, I saw a lot of that. And like I said, I might not be the most assertive every time, but I'm really a person who let's talk about it. Like, let's get to I'm not afraid to talk about the conversation and disagree. Like we can have our disagreements and we can get tense and all that shit. Like that don't bother me. A lot of people, it bothers them. A lot of people, it's like fearful. And I don't think the fear is from like what could go wrong. I think the fear is from not being right. And that's a scary thing sometimes.
A lot of people are just afraid of they're afraid of the feeling of somebody thinking something is wrong with them. But at the end of the day, we all like a little peculiar, and to me, adulthood is just learning how to be more relatable to others and thinking about how you fit into a space and how people fit around you and also how you feel placed in that space. And I definitely, what you said about, when you feel like you're not being yourself, I think like, especially as a young age, like we all come in straight from high school on that same type of bullshit. It was just intensified because now people are like, yo, now I have to make a name for myself. Like, how do I do that? And for a lot of people, it was let me be the pettiest person alive in existence. And and I caught myself sometimes too, and I was like, yo, like this is not how I would normally interact with this. Like just because I'm around these people and they do this doesn't mean that I have to. And so getting to the point where I was comfortable enough to like challenge myself in that way, what has allowed me like tremendous good. Trust me, bro. Because to me, everybody's 2 shakes away from being in their worst predicament or their best predicament, and it's really about how you fortify yourself and forge through like the path. And for me, I've been like just like my whole life, I've been either been pushed in the right direction or the wrong direction. There's always that constant pressure, particularly as a young Black man. Like the pressure is like, I can do this the easy way. I can really turn up on this person right now. I could really punch this person in their face. But at the end of the day, like who am I? And how do I reflect that in all my areas of life? And to me, to continuously choose that is what makes like a really well-rounded and gritty person, somebody who's like salt of the earth. Like you choose to do good regardless of whether or not you have to. And I think we're all on various parts of that journey. I think it's not definitely endorsed right now because there's so much benefit to being selfish in our culture right now. But I think for me, from my perspective, it looks like a lot of things are like failing us right now. And it's a byproduct of that type of mentality. And I'm hoping that we get to we see rock bottom soon so we can just bounce back, because it's just getting crazy out here. I'm hoping for the bounce back, and I'm hoping that like stuff like this, forums like this, like the kind of like Black art renaissance is going on right now are reminders of the things that really bind us together and the stuff that is not beneficial for us as like a species, not even just as like Black people, but as like a culture of humans all across the globe. How can we be more interconnected and just like nice to each other? Like how can we be more seamless and have less contention? I think as we move towards that and we have like more discussions like this, we can really get to a point where the kumbaya stuff is not corny.
Yeah, right. Like, and that's the thing, man. We so afraid to be corny all the time, man. Look, I grew up a fucking square, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't doing
Dead ass.
cool shit. But you know, in college, I just remember like for at least like a good 2 years trying to like, I don't even think it was run away from being a square, but I was like, okay, but I want people to think I'm on some other shit. And like, I never got too far into the bullshit, but, you know, luckily that kind of experimental, like, see what fuck shit I could get into, stupid shit I could do phase kind of came when I was old enough and mature enough to kind of see it ahead, like, you know, way far ahead and be like, yeah, this don't end nowhere that I want to be at. You know what I'm saying? Like, and unfortunately, you know, you touched on this earlier as being a black man. There's a lot of pressure. You know, there's a lot of pressure to from multiple sides. You know, there's the pressure on the one hand of like, you know, you're first generation, college student, all that stuff like that. First generation being in the States, all this different shit. Like, that's a whole different thing. And so you carry the weight of your reality and the fact that this could have been this didn't have to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could have easily been one of those dudes on the street we talk about. Exactly, you know, and I was, you know, I was blessed to be able to go to Ghana, you know, with my family last October, and you know, do some other stuff out there. But we went to my grandfather's and grandmother's village in Elmina, and I was looking around, and you know, that was a bit of a shell shock for me in a lot of different ways. I'll get into on a different platform, but I think one of the things I realized was just how much. One, the mindset of capital and what capital provides. You know, as much as capitalism is some bullshit, I think there are certain things about, like, in Ghana, you know, like if you building a house, and it's probably the same in Jamaica to the extent, like if you building a house, there ain't no, like, you got to have the shit. Like, you got to have the shit that you want to build. And so it might take 10 years, it might take 20 years, but it's not, I'm going to finance this shit and then, you know, get the building materials and shit. Like, it's like, no, like, every day. And so, you know, it's really every day out there. But I was thinking, I was like, man, you know, I'm seeing these people in this fishing village in Ghana and all love to my peoples out there. But how easy it was for if my grandpa and my grandmother didn't decide, like, okay, like, not only am I going to get my education here, but I'm going to go to the United States. Like, they changed the trajectory for an entire generation, 2 generations. Like, and so, like, I have not just his kids, but their nieces and nephews, you know, their cousins, like, have a base here in Milwaukee and across the United States because he made that decision. They made that decision. And so it's like you said, you're not too far away. You a stone's throw away from being something completely different. And your life being, and, you know, I think that is something that is difficult for being a black man. You know what I'm saying? Because all you got to do is go out with your friends one time and do some stupid shit. And that's your life. In many different ways. And I don't think some of our other counterparts experience that, but I think it's very, very, very real when you're a black man, when you're aware that you kind of got it coming from every side. You can get it from niggas in your own hood. You can get it from, obviously, the police, from institutions, all this shit. Like, I remember this feel like I was getting shot on all the time. Not even because people were actually shitting on me, but because nobody gave a fuck. Like, there was just, people weren't looking out. And that's kind of the tale. Not to be, it's so hard to be a black man, but you know what I mean? Like, that shit that we have to go through.
Hey, nigga, that shit is hard, bro.
It is.
Honestly, I feel like that's like a bad word. Like, to even say that is like, it's bad now. And it's so crazy to me because, like you said about that pressure from everywhere and you felt like you're getting shot on from every direction. And it's really because people don't care about you. And when we speak of like the world in the patriarchal sense, like, it's easy to get lost in the vastness of what that encompasses. But when you really focus on like what that means for me and you, like, to me, patriarchy is just as much as a burden for men as it is for women. Like, women have the pressures that they have from us and the system, and there is an opposite to that. You feel me? And particularly as a man, like like when I speak about like life as a man, like there's definitely privileges and shit. Like I don't get to get catcalled and other things like that. I mean, I have been catcalled, but I mean that shit. I don't really think about that. The shit that mostly
it's levels.
Like, yeah, there's levels. There's levels to this shit. Like I can just die walking on the street. Like you feel me? Like if I'm in a room and the shit is getting shot up, like people are looking to me to provide support and to protect them. You feel me? Like there's a societal expectation for protection. And while on the other side that can be looked at as like amazing, and I'm sure it does feel amazing to be able to save people sometimes. That's an immense pressure, honestly, because that's just as a man. But when you talk about being a black man and where those like those fronts are coming from, like those attacks are coming from, is coming from everywhere. And sometimes you can't always be like your true self with a bunch of the fellas because they're also trying to navigate like the system as a dude and to be cared for but also not valued. It's like a particular strange predicament to be in. So now when, at least for me, I really identify with that. But because coming from, I went to Brooklyn Tech as a school here in New York City, and most of the kids there are not black. You feel me? I know maybe all of the black people in that school. You feel me? So
I know you.
I'm not necessarily in a space where like I am loved the most, you know? I have my family, yes, but my family is literally majority women. Like 80% of the individuals in my family are women, right? And as much as women have blessed me in my life and done so much for me, there is that like gap of understanding between who they envision I am and who I am truly. And now I'm coming to a place of higher learning where I'm like watching like fucking The Cosby Show and what's the show with Dwayne? Was it
A Different World?
A Different World, yeah. Like seeing what college was like for them and expecting it to be a place where everybody's really engaged in like the pursuit of learning and the pursuit of society and like how we are about to contribute to like a culture and how we get to learn more about each other. Then I get to college and people are just like, fuck niggas. Black men doesn't do shit. And this, that, and the third. I'm like, God damn. I was so like looking forward to like learning about the collective and how to be a better partner and citizen and brother or sister, brother, just participant like in our community as well as the outside community. But when you're shunned from your own group, as well as the people who are definitely don't look like you, like that's a very unique pressure that I don't think we highlight enough. And I think that there's a lot of black men particularly who are feeling that and have no particular outlet outside of like weed, sex, or the gym to get out any type of frustration. So I think like, I don't know, bro, that was one of the weirdest things to me, to want to really be engaged with others and connect with others, but to be seen as like an adversary between people that I like have the most kinship for. So it was just, it's weird, bro.
Nah, man, I you know, you hit the nail on the head. Like I remember my freshman year, you know, I went to all boys boarding school, middle of nowhere. There was like 6 black people at most every year in the school. It was a small school, but still, like 6 anywhere in the school is small. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
for real, 6. You couldn't find
like 200.
You could have had 10.
Yeah, right. That's all we had. You know, and like for me, you know, once again, women, same kind of shit. And we've had our discussions about that as far as, you know, like being in these spaces and being in women-dominated spaces and things like that, which isn't a horrible thing, but having a lot of love for this stuff. But, you know, like I'm coming into college, like very inexperienced with love, with not necessarily with being on my own because I went to boarding school, but with being in a new city. I'm from a completely different part of the States. So it's not, certain things just aren't what I'm used to or whatever. And I go to a black student union meeting. The first thing I hear is niggas ain't shit. Niggas suck. I hate niggas. I'm like, who are these niggas?
Show me the niggas because I've never seen these people.
I'm like, are they here? And then they don't even be here, bro. It'd be like,
they don't even be here.
These niggas don't even go to our school. It's ghosts of niggas. Like it's projections.
For real, like
and,
those
and
niggas
like
past. How can I niggas past, bro?
and I'm like, bro, I don't even know. And they're like, yeah, y'all. And I was just, it hurt, man. It really did hurt. And it's even sad that it's, I'm older now that I can say that it hurt. Like I'm not scared of how it will be perceived. But back then, I'm like, okay, bro, but what
you
do
could not even
like,
say that bothered you. Like you can't even say that it bothered you
facts.
because you might just face more backlash.
Oh yeah, no, you get jumped because I don't think I was there, but look, I heard I heard when you got jumped, I heard other people like, hey, like I was like, I learned real quickly. I was like, yep, I'm gonna just shut my black ass up. I'm gonna just shut my black ass up.
The thing about me is though, bro, I'm like Jamaican, so them things like I'm not afraid of like you gonna have to yell at me, but.
For sure.
To hear like what they were mad about, it was just so perplexing. You know what I mean? Like, I think what I said was there was actually like a study, I think either by Tinder or some of these dating sites, and it was like globally, what are the most sought after women, right? And I was making the point to say that like as much as you see like black men getting like ran down on by like white girls or whatever women that you see on campus, like the statistics may show something else. And whether or not, and if we are overrepresented, there are other things that account for that feeling other than like we just want to be with people outside of our race. Because there's a reason why like black women are the least like swiped on and why black men have a higher ability to like involve themselves in other cultures. And it's usually just different forms of like fetishization and exoticism. And that's what I was trying to say is like, yo, we are going through different forms of the same thing. You may see it as a benefit for us because we have like sex as an availability, but what really lies behind it is not necessarily beneficial, right? But it's like even to speak about things in like an objective point of view was like shunned, right? And I don't know how we can really get down to the like what are the barriers between black men and black women particularly, because we were talking about that black student union thing, and how are we ever going to break those down if we don't speak frankly and like courageously about the things that we are experiencing outside? And
yeah,
while I know there are plenty of crazy men out here on these streets, trust me, I know some. I don't think we really often hear about what it is like on the other side of that. Like the things that we experience that account for maybe the worst versions of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like even in my own life, bro, there's plenty of times where like women have wilded out on me, like OD, non-provoked or whatever. And if I didn't have like the self-reflection and wherewithal to not like let other people suffer for previous to my problems, I could easily be like some of the men that these people describe. So to me, it's just all about which part of your life experiences have led you into this direction. And if certain people are allowed to speak that concern as they should, and others are not, there's like a glut in the system. Like there's a space that needs to be corrected. And as long as there is like people who are feeling like they cannot voice themselves or speak to themselves, that's how you breed like radicals. Like that's how radicals happen. And I just don't feel like we are like really invested in breaking down the weird shit that we have between everybody, like the races, men and women. I feel like we're not seriously invested. It's all like face value. And it's just so strange to me because that's a big reason why I started to paint. My paintings are very like abstract and galaxy universally like pictured, and I chose that type of scenery because at the end of the day that's what connects us all. Like we are from this space, like we are coalescence of the universe. And when we think of things in that big sense, like in those terms, like the barriers that between black and white and men and women, like what are they? Like we are just one people stuck on a rock in a vast system. And if we can't work with each other, what hope do we have to really like conquer our environment? So it's just honestly, bro, I'm perplexed, bro. I really don't really know what to do. It causes me a great amount of anguish to not be able to like converse in a constructive way with people on the subject. So, man, I don't know.
No, for sure, man. And I think, you make, you spitting real, and I'm not a person who would just be like, yeah. Like, I really feel like if there was something that was, oh, no, I don't agree with that, I would have said it. But everything you're saying is true. And from down to, there's so many things I want to respond to, specifically one, the whole idealization of what the Black male experience is like, right? Because even down to being like the whole protector thing, bro, I'm 5'9", like on a good day, like, you know what I'm saying? I
gotta protect me.
Like, I'm not a big nigga. Like, what you mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like it's I'm not scared. I'm not going like, back down, but it's not as if I have some, beyond the fact that I have more muscle mass because of my physiology, I could get got, you know what I'm saying? And so there's that, but there's also, that fetishization, I've been he's not that kind of Black guy, that kind of stuff, where they try to, put me in that category and shit. And I'm like, nah, bro, like, I grew up in the hood. Like, I grew up around Black people. I'm not a street nigga or no shit like that, but I know what it's like, and I know what my people like, and I can get down with that shit. It feels like, I've been there where I just feel like you just want the idea of, ooh, that's a Black, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I wonder what it's like. And that's annoying. But further on, and all that shit aside, I agree wholeheartedly with the fact that, we all have our ways of coping with the reality that we are on this world. Some of us do it through religion. Some of us do it through art. Some of us do it through science, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, what you said is the truth, that this is what we got. We got each other. And that doesn't invalidate the fact that we have differences, or that oppression is something that has existed in our world and is continuously, or that our cultural differences do define us in different ways, good and bad. But, there are so many times, like, I had somebody who I was on, like, they close friends or whatever. And I admired them for what they did and what they provided, all that stuff like that. But there was the same, for all the good that I appreciated for them and what they had to say, there were negative things that were being perpetuated, that I was like, I can't get by this. I can't get by this, because there's still a lot of hurt and hate in your heart. And what you said earlier about, yeah, I could turn up on Jones. I could say all types of different shit and be disrespectful and lie and do all this shit that they claim that niggas do, but that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be, because I know I can be better. We can all be better. And I don't know. I think it's real easy to get comfortable. I think the work you're talking about, right, the work you're talking about is being uncomfortable. Is sitting there and having your mind broken about the realities of what you believe and what you don't believe. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, saying what is the point of all this? And then what I try to do with my life, one thing I talk about consistently that kind of puts people off a little bit is I consistently think about my own death. Not in a, like, not that I'm looking forward to it, not that I'm scared of it, I'm a little scared of it, but like, that it's going to be there one day, whether I want it to be there or not. And once that happens, I don't know. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? It could be all kinds of answers to what happens next. That's not for me to know until it happens. But because I only have power over what I do while I'm on this planet in this form, I try to make sure that I live my life in a way that I can be proud of, in a way that I can look back and say that, no, we're not going to save the world. Most of us probably went to college. When I got to college, I was in international relations. I wanted to be an ambassador because I did a program with Iraqi students in 2013 and, wanted to make it better for whatever I thought it was going to be and stuff like that. And I got to the first few weeks of classes. I was like, oh, y'all don't know what the fuck y'all talking about either. Cool. I'm going to do something else. But you can still impact people in a great way, and I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of people who dislike me for whatever reason. But I'd like to think that most spaces I've left an impact where people can look back and say, Anthony was like solid. Like he helped me see something in myself that I didn't see, or he helped facilitate a conversation or grow or whatever. And that's what I think my calling is in this world is. And I think all of our calling is that. I don't think it's unique in the sense that everybody can't do it. I just think that you have to find that and say to yourself, I want to make this world better by my actions. I want people to feel good.
100%, bro.
Oh, yeah, no, but yeah, shit. Okay, so I kept the questions real basic this time, so I don't have a whole lot. But I did want to ask a couple things about what your experience. You touched on a little bit, but what's your experience. But since you kind of added that other element of talking about you being from Jamaica and then coming over, like, can you just explain to me and us about like what that process was and your cultural understanding, both being Jamaican and coming over here and like living in New York and stuff like that, like how that shaped you?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up on a farm, like down there, right? So my grandfather did a few things, but he was a fisherman and he had a farm, and like I grew up on that in that type of setting. And so I think just being able to be around nature, being around like, to me, that was like the most human life you can have. Like out of the entire history of humanity, like most people were doing that, right? We're close to the earth, we're walking around barefoot and this, that, and the third, and coming back here and having to integrate into like a more like structural system. It gave me the ability to, like the first instance of being in an objective place. I think like for me, objectivity is one of the biggest things because that's how you understand a wide view of things. So being able to like be in the country and then come to the city and have success in both and navigate both and go through the bullying of being from the United States and being in Jamaica, like there's a whole bunch of shit that's being said about you, and then coming back here having a thick ass accent and people clowning you. Like at the end of the day, like we shame what we don't really know, right? And I was able to learn that from an early age, and that really put me on a quest of like learning as much as I could, because like I used to have really bad eyesight for most of my life. Like I couldn't see shit, but I thought that's how most people saw. Like I just thought everything was supposed to be blurry. So I'm like fucking looking at shit, and I have no like objective view of what it's really supposed to look like, right? So being at a place where I'm bombarded about all these different types of things, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, and having an actual like particular issue, and nobody can really hone in on that unless I spoke up for myself in that way, really like forced me to be just more adult and be more understanding, because like now I wear glasses, like this is a visible disability, but beforehand you wouldn't have known. And there's so many things that are going on with people that we don't see. And after going through my life has been fucking crazy, bro. Just a whole bunch of craziness with my at-home life and my brother and all that types of stuff. That really forced me to see that as much as this is a family that provides me wellness, and in comparison to other people, I'm privileged. Like I know where I'm from. I've been to another country and all those. These are all privileges, but at the other end, there's like significant like disturbances that I have to go through as well. So all that stuff really put me in a particularly other, like I was outside the normal confines of society, I feel like. And being on the outside just allowed me to really like grow and see so much that for most people my age was inaccessible. And to be thankfully, like I'm blessed, like I was a smart kid. I was able to like really use my brain to like propel me in life. That in itself is a privilege. So to me, I was just always on the outside of trying to analyze how things are the way they were. And then after going through so much significant turmoil in my life, I was like, yo, like I think I've kind of like honed in on what the fuck is the global problem here. I know that sounds like really like, like why does he think so highly of himself? But I don't know. Like I just always felt like I could see that shit, and it just seems to me like there was like a strategic breakdown in communication. And everybody says communication is key and all that shit, but it's very like fake. It's flimsy. Like everybody's walking around here afraid to say what the fuck is really going on with them. Like you ask somebody how they're doing and they say good. Like you almost feel bad to say that you're not good. That shit is so weird. Like why would I, like at the end of the day, like everybody is the center of their own story, right? Everybody is their own main character. But how do we, even main characters need side, everybody has their own shit, everybody has their own universes. But when you get to a point where those are intermeshed together, like you get the true understanding, the true like height of connectivity between people, like you will feel the best. I used to play in an orchestra, and like I'm not a religious man at all, but that is the most connected you will feel with people. Like you are all doing one thing together. You are relying on each other in spoken ways, but also like unspoken ways. And to me, that was the big problem that I saw like outside. It's just like we are too distant from each other. We've moved so far away from our like original way of living, and we've let like our innovations cloud our judgment. So noticing all that shit is really what shaped me, because I've realized that my purpose is to leave an impact and to remind people that we are here together. Like my art is about that type of feeling, like what it is that pulls us together. How can I visualize emotions that people have gone through? How can I share my own story to show that it is possible to do more than one thing, to connect more than just a face level? With my activism, it's just all about impact. And if it wasn't for like the super hard shit I've had to go through, I've almost died like plenty of times, bro. Like I bust my head when I was 9. I lost a bunch of my memory. I had to like literally like learn how to remember again, like remember who the fuck I was, like all the shit about my childhood that was. And for me to be under such hard pressures and be able to see and to still be empathetic and fucking be a relatively normal human being. I mean, I'm still a dickhead sometimes, I'm sure, but I still think like I have like a relative understanding of most people. And I think if I can avoid the pull of like of bad, like like the pull of like, could I rob this person, or could I do some gang shit, or do I have to be nice to this person? To avoid that while also undergoing extreme hardship, and to see people who I'm much more blessed than, like to travel abroad and see people who are like literally struggling on the street, but they find a reason to like be happy and engage with everybody and try to like to live. Like that's what really pushes me to see that we're doing it wrong, bro. And there's a lot of ways that we can get better. And I just wanted to be one of those people to push it in that direction. Money is great. And at the end of the day, I still have to eat, but that doesn't drive me at all. Like impact and service and connections is what my true currency is. So that's how I've really based my life around. Like everything that I do, I make sure that impact is central to it, because once at least for me, once I do that, I was able to really have like, for lack of a better word, an actual impact on people. People can recognize genuine feelings, right? And like you said before, everything doesn't have to be transactional. And it was, for me, like being in like a slower pace of life and being able to travel. I went to Bosnia and all these other different countries and see how other people live, and to see that shit is not always transactional, and that there's a lot much more to life than what we've defined it here to be as. Those are the type of things that have allowed me to like really break out in these different types of field, because when you bring that that touch to it, I think people notice. So those are the things that have like really formulated me. It's been a lot of fucking hardship and a lot of learning and eating my ego for the greater good. Because I definitely be wanting to wild out on people. But at the end of the day, like I said, that's not me. And I've definitely have wild out on a few people, for sure. I'm not a perfect human being, but to me, I will never be perfect, but perfection is my goal. And as long as I strive to to that, I think I'll be good. And that's really all I'm trying to do, bro. I'm trying to be remembered for doing something extraordinary.
For sure, man. You know, it's funny, man. I don't really believe in things like coincidences. Honestly, I feel like things are happening in the order that they're supposed to. That's my personal way of looking at things. But it's funny hearing you and you talk about the connectedness of people and all these things. These are down to like the things you're saying, down to currency, down to you know, all the main character. You know, we all have our own stories. You know, these are things I was literally talking about like yesterday. And I think that it shows exactly what you're talking about, you know, all those things. And so I'm happy to know, and just hearing, like, it continues to make me happy to know that there are people who do believe this and do think these ways. And we all have our own things that shape us and things that give us strength. But I truthfully believe that, like you said, we're all just consistently miscommunicating with one another, and constantly like have this. We've been taught to think that we have to hold things in. We've been taught to feel like if he gets or she gets or they get or whoever gets, like, then that means that I don't get. And I don't think that we have to be that way. I agree. I think that a lot of the stuff that we see, that we hype, you know, I thought about this a lot as far as being successful, right? And so, yeah, I want to sing and do music for a living and travel and all these different things. But I've never idealized, beyond like maybe when I was a kid or whatever, but I've never really idealized celebrities and this idea that these people are amazing. As I got older and continue to see the world and learn about myself, I realized we're all humans. Like, we're all just people.
Yeah, they're just regular ass people, bro.
Really, they just got a little more money, a little more influence. And that's fine and good. But I think at the end of the day, you hit all of the points that I try to live my life with. And I just, you know, if I get to extraordinary, that's dope. But just knowing, you know, that I live every day impacting people and doing the things that I love, I might not get to the finish line that I see for myself or once saw for myself, but I'm truly happy most days. And I think that is something that is a gift. And part of that gift is, like you said, being able to see people in their lives and see the way other people live and see that it's not that deep. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can have all the riches, all the wealth, all the whatever, and feel empty. And I know we all have felt that. You get exactly what you want. You know, I remember AU was my dream for, you know, at least a year, 2 years, you know, being in DC, doing that stuff like that. And there are so many nights where I was just like, I feel alone. And I feel like, what's the point of doing this? And so I had to recontextualize it, and I had to find my own path. And so thank you for sharing that, man, because I really think that people need to hear that, and people need to know that this shit is not, it's not what it seems, man. You know what I'm saying? Seeing might be believing, but that doesn't mean you seeing the truth. That just is just what you seeing, man. And
exactly.
Yeah, man,
most of the time you only see in like half the picture, especially if we fucking looking at this Instagram shit. Like, most of the people have curated their lives to look amazing. Like, everybody feels lonely, everybody feels sad, everybody feels all this other shit. But if we only force feed like the best highlights of yourself to people, like, that's me contributing to somebody else's downfall, I guess. Like, I think we deserve to be real in front of each other. And I think, particularly as a man, as a black man, I don't think we are often afforded that opportunity. Like, there's only a few versions of myself that are acceptable, right? And I think so many of us are going through that turmoil of who can I be and who am I? And all the other crazy shit that happens with us is a huge byproduct of either trying to be somebody that I otherwise weren't and then becoming that person, or not doing the things that I was supposed to do, not doing the things I was supposed to do, and being confined to this limited version of who myself is. And I think as we we speak a lot about like broadening the spectrum and broadening like our accepted versions of each other, but there's so much that we don't let each other do. You know what I mean? Like just a few years ago, me talking to you like this plainly in an open platform, people would have been like, "Yo, what the fuck is you doing? Like, you're not supposed to tell anybody that type of shit. You're supposed to die like feeling that way." And bruh, like that just sounds awful. You know what I mean? I talk to some of my uncles and my older brothers, and I have a lot of older friends and shit. And I'm like, "Yo, like, are y'all comfortable with how you are allowed to be in life?" And they all tell me no, but that's just life and you have to accept it. Like, but for me, like the idea of accepting what's given, like the placement that I'm given is like disgusting to me. Like I cannot live like that. Like I literally refuse to. I would die. I'd rather die being the way that I am now than living my life in like fucking unhappiness. Like there's so like, for example, an interesting statistic that I've learned about recently is that if you're over 50, if you're a male and you're over 50 and you're unmarried, your biggest risk factor for dying is loneliness, bro. Loneliness.
I've heard.
Can you imagine, like,
that's crazy?
All the lonely dudes out here, bro? And the reason why they're lonely is because dudes are not endorsed to make friends. Like the ways that we get to engage with people are not really like full. And I think that's the type of shit that's left out of like the patriarchal talk and what men do and what men don't do, is that as much as men have a culture between them that allows them to do or not do things, for the most part, for the straight men, for the majority of the world, like of the men population that are straight, like the people that we trust the most and confide in the most are women. So a big part of that is them also allowing us to be these new versions of people that they want us to be, and for us to be accepting of them as full people as well. But I think right now there's like an unequalness to it, and I don't even really know, with all the stuff that we were learning about in the last few years about like just in terms of gender relations and the broadening of what we deem acceptable in society. I thought that those things would come along with it, but it's almost demonized to really want to change in the way that what societies tell me we should change to. But I think it's really causing a lot of us stress, like a lot of, and not just stress. It seems like almost too easy of a word. Like for me, like I know that my mother would fucking feel terrible to see me on TV getting shot and becoming a hashtag and all that shit. There is that feeling that I'm sure they do have, all these parents have. But what does it feel like to walk around every day and know that I'm the target? You know what I mean? And what does it feel like every day to come home and realize that I may be a target in here too? Or I could be seen as a target and not really know why. And coming to college, I think that was the biggest thing for me, because I learned so many other ways of how to be proper. Like, yo, I might have to chain. I might have to not wear a hoodie so I don't get fucking pulled over by the police. Or I'm going to have to walk a little further. I can't walk as fast because if I roll up on a woman too close, they might feel some type of way. And those are all, I guess, those are valid things in their own right. But to me, like, to feel like people saw me as a predator or people saw me as an adversary without doing or saying anything, that's, to me, was just as big of a weight. And I think if we really want to break down these terrible things that happen between us all, then we have to figure out how to listen like in a full way to these problems that these people are having, and also how do we address them. But if people are not endorsed to be their full selves, allowed to speak their full mind, we will never get to that point. And I feel like we're on the cusp of never getting to that point. I feel like we're regressing in those terms. And the same type of surprise that me and you had coming into college and thinking like this place was going to be much more like enriching. That's the same type of feeling I'm having, like being an adult on my own in a world that we are all like creating in real time. Like it just feels like this is not what the fuck y'all niggas advertised to me.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
Nah. I feel that, man. Yeah. Nah. Yeah, bro, it's real interesting, man, because I have these conversations with my male friends, and I've had to move away from certain people because I think at a certain level, while it is our job to teach and grow and heal these things, you have to be open to it, and so
Yeah.
it's really hard, for me with like I've had friends who I've just been like, man, I get, like I said, like, bro, we niggas. So I understand from the, like, I'm trying to get at Jones type perspective of the frustration of that and just going through that stuff like that. But the way that we can't even be open with ourselves and open amongst each other is difficult. And I also think that, like, it shouldn't be, and I'm not saying that because it's our fault, but I'm saying because of the systems, it shouldn't be women's responsibility to be the people that we talk to and be around, like solely. It should be something that we can all be able to talk to one another and be amongst each other and be open with our, and that's obviously we don't live in a perfect world, so that's never going to happen where everybody can just be open but I do think there are gulfs that we still, like you said, can overcome. And so we'll see, man. You never know, because although I don't think there's some things I don't know about the world will ever change. Mm-hmm. I do think that we can continue to evolve. I do think that we can continue to, because even though I think our technology and our society outpaced our evolution. And so we have a lot of things, right, that we're not ready for it. We still have a very primitive mindset as far as like our tribalism, as far as, even things like how we associate bias and stuff like that. And when we see people who don't look like us, it automatically is like this adversarial thing, which I think is what contributes to a lot of the things like racism and sexism and stuff like that is what you talked about, which is being able to be empathetic and see people beyond just what their external is and knowing that you don't really know what somebody going through on a daily basis. I try to talk to some of the kids I work with about that. Like, y'all not the only people in here who doing certain things. You're not the only people who might have something. We was in a small classroom one day, and I had to keep some of them behind because I was like, nah, y'all wilding too much. And I know I'm Mr. Mean Adult, but like, I get it now. You're like, when you was a kid, you're like, man, fuck that. But now you like, what it's like coming in after already doing hella shit, and now you got to deal with a bunch of 8, 9, 10-year-olds yelling at you about doing shit, and it's like, but bro, like somebody could have like anxiety, somebody could have asthma, somebody's parents could be taken to appointment or some shit like that. And just being able to think beyond that and think beyond what my initial desires are is something that I think is crucial to learn at a younger age. And it's not happening, but before because we about that at the time, I wanted to give you opportunity to spotlight anything you're doing, spotlight any other artists, any other people that you wanted to shout out, and just tell us what's buzzing right now, because that's part of it. We want to keep the train moving and show love to people and stuff.
Got you. I appreciate you. Before I get into that, though, I want to respond real quick to something that you just said.
Yeah.
And
do you think?
I don't necessarily think it's women's responsibility to like be our like therapist or whatever. However, I do think we have a responsibility to each other. Like, I think everybody has a responsibility to each other. Like, when I walk outside every single day, like, if I see somebody in need, I'm going to help them. Because even if, like, for a selfish reason, like, that could be me, and I would love for somebody to help me in that scenario. But at the end of the day, help is needed. Like, help, like, that is what's needed. And I brought up that particular point because just to show that men have very few outlets, even within ourselves. Like, there's stuff I can come with you to, like, I already know that for sure. And even as, like, I consider myself more, like, a more reformed person, like, there's still things that would be harder for me to tell you than it would be, like, somebody that I was romantically involved with. And
for sure, I
just bring that up to say that that's like a responsibility in and of itself, like being a confidant, being a trusted person, and in doing so, between me and you, I know that like you tell me something, I should never use it against you just because that's like the dickheadest thing to do. And I think outside of that, like that's something that we should all do to each other. And I think when we talk about like, yo, I'm nobody's therapist and all that other shit, what gets lost in that is that, yo, sometimes people need to talk to somebody who is not a fucking professional. Like most of us don't have psychiatrists and psychologists money, fam. Like sometimes there's so much wellness I've gotten just from hearing other people's existence and other people's problems, learning how to solve shit on my own from hearing the shit that other people have gone through. So I only brought that up to say is that like I really like I would want for all of us to incorporate this, like this my brothers and my sister's keeper mentality. Like at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility. I have a responsibility to my own life. However, in the interest of all of us, I'm going to take on that responsibility because fucking you deserve better, I deserve better. But who starts it? You know what I mean? In this idea of it's not my responsibility, like whose is it then? Like I can't talk to no fucking cat, bro. Like I can have a cat. The cat not gonna understand me. Like you feel me? So that's all I wanted to say. Like just we need, whether or not it's our fault or our job, like the work needs to be done, bro. The work needs to be done and somebody has to do it and it has to start somewhere. And I think all this "it's not my problem" shit kind of just takes us away from that human element that like, yo, if it's not your responsibility, it's not my responsibility, whose does it go to? Like it has to start somewhere. That's all it is. So
sure. Thank you for clarifying.
No, I appreciate you. And for me, like all I got going on right now is I'm trying to do as much commissions as possible. I'm about to have surgery on my right arm soon, so I'm doing as much shows and commissions as I possibly can. I'm trying to paint as much as I can before I lose like my right arm for a few weeks. I have a show coming up on March 31st in Brooklyn at Crown Heights Cafe. It's going to be like art meets music type of vibe. There's going to be a DJ, an artist talk, some food, some drinks, and we're just all just kind of vibing together, really trying to, I want people, my goal of the show is to kind of share what synesthesia is for me, for others. So like, how can I really fully curate the room, curate the vibe, having these senses, incorporate these senses and heighten each other. So that's what the goal of the show is about. I'm partnering with my like longtime friend. We went to elementary school together. His name is Solomon Butler. He goes by Mr. Butler on Instagram. He's a DJ, very much into to skating and stuff like that. He does like house music, things like that. A few people I've been following is also on Instagram, this woman called Victoria Misu. She's more of like, she does, to me, like her work is more of like live. It's like a realistic painting using herself as the medium. Like there's no actual like paint or anything involved. She uses fabrics and like picture frames and mirrors and things like that and light. And she plays with it all to kind of create, to me, which would be like the real version of the paintings I would make. You know what I mean? Like having an actual moving picture. It's like a movie, but also an art piece. Like if you imagine like a painting on the wall, but it moves, I think that would be some of her work. And dang, what else you asked me, bro?
Oh, just whoever you felt like shouting out at, nothing specific.
Let's see, who I want to shout out.
Well, I did say community organizations too or anything else, but yeah, whatever.
Oh, okay, community organizations. Oh, okay, so if you're in New York City, there's this organization, if you're like a teen, called Global Kids, something that I was involved with as a young person. It's all about like activism, youth activism, self-actualization. There's plenty of opportunities. I was able to travel to Bosnia with them through a U.S. State Department partnership. I was able to represent them and meet Michelle Obama, go to the White House and all that type of stuff. So if you put in the work, like there's plenty of resources and platforms that you can join onto to really do the things that you want to do. So Global Kids is definitely one of them. I also previously worked with Alliance for Climate Education. I'm currently working at this place called Good Shepherds, and they do a lot of like community outreach programs. workforce readiness with 18 to 24-year-olds. So those are definitely things to tap into. Who am I missing? We definitely gonna shout out my boy Tony Drifting. You know what I mean? The music on the way, for stuff. But yeah, honestly, I don't even really. My mind is blank right now. But all I really want to shout out is just be more intentional. You know what I mean? Let's all just be more intentional. Not even want to shout out. I want a call to action. Like, let's really be more intentional about who we want to be and who we want to show each other that we are. I don't think there's a reason to hide anymore. Like, we have all these phones and shit. Like, what we gonna watch if not ourselves be full, complex human beings? So, challenge yourself to be different. There's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable. There's a lot of like growth and wellness to be gained from being in a place that is unfamiliar. You've definitely gained some. Like, you came all the way from fucking Milwaukee to DC. Like, first of all, what is a Milwaukee? Like, where is that?
See, look, we're not about to do all this, man. We ain't about to do all this today, man.
you a whole nother person.
Man, look. All I know is that we got the chip. That's what I'm holding my head on right now. We got the chip. That's true. We got, you know, we got some things on the way. Y'all gonna know about us.
My man traveled all the way from Nova Scotia to DC, and he did some things. So there's just a lot to learn from being in new places and accepting new people and putting yourself in new circumstances. So I just call on all y'all, whoever watches, even you, me, just to all just be intentional about who we want to be and who we show to each other. And that's really all I want out of this.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the insights, man. It's a really great conversation. We're going to make sure that we get these out here moving and, make sure that we doing all the things you just talked about and share. So thank you once again for being part of the experience.
Bro, I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for having me. And also follow me at nmavour, Mavour. I post my painting there. Sometimes I do live painting. Like I said, I have that event coming up March 31st, 7 to 11, 764 Franklin Avenue, Crown Heights Cafe. And also shout out Crown Heights Cafe. I know the owner, Lyndon McKenzie, great dude, all about the community. Also, I want to shout out Lips Cafe. There's another Black-owned business on Nustron Avenue here in Brooklyn, and they do a lot of dope stuff. So any of you people who want to go to live events, sometimes music, sometimes art, a chill vibe, those are definitely two great Black-owned places that you can go to here in Brooklyn.
That's what's up. Cool, man. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, it's another YMD Fireside in the books. Y'all take it easy. And my catchphrase that I always forget is, you don't know if it's true if you ain't try it. Stay up. Peace.
You don't know if it's true if you ain't try it, baby.
You know the vibes.
You don't know if it's true if you ain't try it.
I'm gonna get it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put the on it. All right. Okay. All right. I think it's stopping.
Yeah, make that into producer tag, bro. You gotta turn that into producer tag.
Something